Hello. Um, I just decided to go ahead and film this. There have been a few thoughts on my mind as of late. I feel like are important to share as part of my experience and part of my story. Being an LGBT man, as well as a faithful and active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints, Mormons, has been a process that has required a lot of thinking and putting things together and taking them apart, and just this process of figuring out identity and who I am and what I represent and what matters to me. Um, and so I find that sharing my story through this venue helps me to put my thoughts in and kind of order them and make them a little bit more cohesive. So the purpose of this video is to express some thoughts on, like what I've come to believe is the purpose for me being LGBT. So I can call myself gay, for lack of a better word. That's complicated. Sexuality is complicated. It's always complicated. But that's really the closest term that fits. And then I am also bigendered. So I feel masculine about 80% of the time, but there's this 20% that's been this tendency towards being very feminine that I have had to kind of unpack, because it's been more than just simply feel, there's some guys that are softer and more kind and compassionate and or feminine, if you will, but it goes beyond that. There's just a really deep sense of being feminine that shows up about 25% of the time for me, that I've just kind of had to kind of unpack. And why is this part of my experience? Why is this part of anyone's experience? In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we hold marriage between a man and a woman to be essential to our eternal destiny and purpose. That, eternal joy is found in having a family that lasts for eternity. And I've had to really wrestle with that concept because it doesn't jive with me emotionally. It's just not there. And a lot of that comes down to feeling a lot more feminine and also being attracted to men. People talking about marriage to a woman being like this great and wonderful thing, and I'm sure it is for those who are engaged in that and it works. It just doesn't make sense to me because of my attraction to men. So I've had to do a lot of unpacking and asking myself, okay, well, why is this? Why would, if God really, that's his plan, and then why would he allow this to happen? And if you ask LGBT members of the church, they'll all come up with different answers for that. And that really personal nature of it makes it so really hard to generalize what it means to be LGBT. So I'm speaking only from my experience. I can't say that this is how any other LGBT person is going to conceptualize what they experience, but for me, this is how it works. So I've in the church, in relation to the LGBT thing, there's been a tendency for church leaders to talk about it as being a trial that's going to resolve, right? So in 2006, and then in addresses to the Evergreen International organization, they talked about how we will one day arise with normal attractions, and yada yada. It'll all be fixed. And that's never jived with me. I've never liked that narrative. In part because, well, there's several different reasons for that, but the biggest thing is it just makes it so meaningless. It's like, okay, here's this part of you, these feelings that you have that are beautiful and wonderful and cause you to want to connect and connect deeply and yada yada, and oh, they're abnormal, they're aberrations, and it'll be fixed in the eternities. Don't you worry about it. Like, that's just too heteronormative for me. It's too making eternity into one man's perspective into eternity. It just doesn't jive with my experience. So I've rejected that for the most part, that line of thinking. And I respect where Elder Wickman and Elder Oaks from 2006 and others are coming from when they express similar sentiments, but I don't entirely agree. The reason is this. I've come to say, well, I have this, I experience this, so what does it mean? What does it mean? I can't just pretend that it doesn't happen, because it does every day. So what does it mean? And I've come to realize that the answer to that is up to me. What does it mean? Well, I get to choose what it means. So if I want it to mean this is an aberration from what's normal and it will be resolved in the eternities, that's what it's going to mean. On the other hand, I can make different meanings of it if I wish. 1 Corinthians 3 talks about building our own houses upon the foundation of the gospel. And for me, that means that I, as a member of this church, am responsible for writing my story and for making myself some meaning out of what I experience. So what I have come to decide is, while I say that I am gay, and that is mostly true, it doesn't capture what I am trying to do with the feelings and the emotions and the thought processes that I have that are lumped into that word gay. What it comes down to for me is that I am a lover of men. I love men. I love masculinity. I am drawn to masculinity and to not just in the very heteronormative American male sense of masculinity, but the various ways that men show up in the world in their bodies. I'm attracted to the male body, and I'm attracted to men who are embodied and who own their bodies and who walk through the world with confidence and humility. I am just drawn to that. I love it. It burns deep in the core of my soul, this love from men. And with that, an accompanying desire to invest in the well-being of the men that I know. From my perspective, there's a lot of things we as a society do not do well in relation to men. We don't. And that's not to say that, the feminism or this focus on femininity that has come into view, that isn't welcome. I 100% believe that's welcome. It's more of a, okay, let's make sure that we are discussing men's well-being too, because it matters. There's nothing wrong with being attracted to men. There's nothing wrong with the fact that I'm attracted to men. There's nothing wrong with the fact that I find the male body and male sexuality to be so powerful and wonderful. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be connected to men and to be involved with men and to make that a life priority, if not the priority. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't foresee myself getting married to a woman. I'm open to that being a possibility, but it just doesn't fit. So for now, that's what fits. I am a lover of men. I love men. I love men across all walks of life and all different circumstances. And I allow the deep drive that I have towards the masculine and towards men to manifest in a deeply committed working on relationships with men, on facilitating affectionate, mutually respectful, trusting relationships with men, straight men, gay men, men across as many different divides as I can possibly find. That's really what my sexuality and my gender lead me to do. And I feel like that's an important work. Anyway, these are all just thoughts that I kind of have on my mind right now. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you listening to me. And have a good night.